started to travel just before, prior to playing with Joe Henderson. I was playing with this group of younger musicians that had already been in existence before I came into the band. It was a band called Out of the Blue, OTB. And they were already established, and they already had several records out. Maybe, can't remember, 2 or 3 records out. And they were a band of young guys, my age, but guys that were pretty much seasoned vets. And the drummer was Ralph Peterson, great drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And Kenny Garrett was in the band. Bob Hurst was the bass player. And,
wow.
All those guys. So I got a call to sub for Ralph Peterson because he was starting to do stuff as a leader. He was starting to really, come out as a band leader at that time. So he was kind of transitioning into that role, and so they needed somebody to fill in for a couple of nights. It was a couple of nights in New York at the Village Gate Club back then, and then I started. I did a couple gigs, and miraculously they saw something, and then they asked me to go on the road with them, go to Europe. That was my first trip to Europe.
Wow.
I think we went to Spain, and then we went to Switzerland, and all that, just boom, at that time. So for me, it was my first trip out of the country, and and we went to some other places, Canada in the summer, and Japan that year. We went to Japan. That was really special because it was the Mount Fuji Jazz Festival. And that year in particular was just so special because it was like drum heaven for me.
Yeah.
I think for most of the guys, but because first of all, this is like a one festival, so we were all together, traveling in bus and this whole thing. It was, the drummers were Roy Haynes, Art Blakey, Tony Williams, and then Victor Lewis, Lewis Nash, Kenny Washington, Ralph Peterson, Cindy Blackman, Clifford Barbaro. I can't remember who else.
Wow.
But it was like and I was the new guy, I'm just like, whoa, what's going on here? These guys, they're just, you see, you're walking down the hallway in the hotel, and there's, it's got Jackie McLean, Joe all these guys, all these guys, that these great musicians. So I was in heaven, man. That was just like being in a dream. This was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I didn't have any obligations, and so I could just kind of do whatever I wanted to do. I didn't have to answer to anybody but myself.
Right.
Which is it's nice when once you go on the other side, you have obligations and kids and then your thing is you take somebody else's first.
Yeah.
You're not first anymore.
Right. I guess.
So so that's what was happening at that time.
Got it.
Well, I didn't really decide that. And you're talking about in terms of doing a record as a leader.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I didn't really pursue that at that time. I didn't feel like I was. I mean, all this is like during a time when you're just trying to figure it all out. You don't have any. I didn't have any. I was just happy to be doing anything, right? I was just happy to be playing with anybody. I was just happy to be a part of anything, But I think, I don't even know how it happened. My first recording as a leader, I think that Jerry Teekins at Crisscross asked me if I was interested in doing something.
Okay. Is that native colors? Is that
right? Exactly. Right. And so so I just put together a band and put together some music, and went in there and went in there and did it. And so you're almost kind of, at that time you were almost kind of not, naive enough to just think, oh, this will be fun, fun to do this.
Yeah.
I think I had probably done some records as a sideman for that label before I had done something for myself. Mm-hmm. So I've always been fairly comfortable in the studio, and in a studio. I like making records. I like, and I like making somebody else's record, just being the drummer, just being a sideman. I like that. I like the craftsmanship involved. I always practiced with records. I did, I always played along with records, sometimes without headphones, sometimes with headphones. I think it's a good thing to probably do, because, it's all about you being able to adjust to the given situation, because, when you're playing to a record, of course, the record's not responding to you. You have to adjust to the record, whether, being able to play light enough so that you can hear, perhaps the bass or what's going on, and you have to, but still play, still play. So if you're playing with headphones on to a recording, that's sort of similar to playing with headphones on in the studio. Except for in a studio, usually you have a separate headphone mixer, and you can turn up the bass or turn down the bass or turn up the piano, or what you can customize it for your own personal, sonics for your own personal listening back and playback, and and you can turn yourself up too. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I guess having played to records and stuff perhaps could have had some influence on my being able to be comfortable in the studio like that. Mm-hmm. But I didn't find it the least bit inhibiting, with the headphones and all that kind of stuff. I always felt pretty comfortable.
Nice, yeah.
For doing it,
So records you were...
Yeah, well, when he asked me to do it, like I said, I was probably naive enough to just not get freaked out about it, because I was just thinking of this. Wow, this will be fun,
Yeah.
And that first record, I believe, was at Rudy Van Gelder's, so it was I think it might have been my first time at Rudy's. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I had been there before for something else. That studio is that room is just first of all, it's it's a historic room, historic studio, and Rudy was a historic figure in the recording, especially of jazz,
Absolutely, yeah.
But all kinds of music, but jazz, he's known for, all the Blue Notes and Impulse and Prestige and CTI and countless other labels, he's basically the house engineer. And so a lot of, many of my favorite recordings were done there. So anyway, but that room, what I was going to say is the drums feel really good in there. Mm. And he was kind of a no nonsense. You didn't have to go in there and do a whole lot of fiddling around to get it right. It was right because he knew the room. So you just plop the drums in, and boop, he put the mics up, and you're ready to go. It's not it wasn't a whole lot of, tap on this, bop, bop, boop, 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 like you do in most. He already knew what it was going to be. Wow. And so that was my first recording as a leader. Was very fortunate, man. I think about it and I go, wow, man. I wasn't even I had only been in New York maybe a couple years, at that time,
Wow. And then